And let's move into one of the more bitter rivals of the Rams in this division, the Seattle Seahawks. Obviously, the Seahawks' probably biggest rival in this division is the 49ers, but definitely was competitive last year. Year 2 of the Mike McDonald era for the Seattle Seahawks. What do you feel like the expectation is for this team? They went 10-7, and they missed the playoffs off of tiebreakers. So when you have that, like what kind of goal do you set for this team? Is it playoff or bust?
I don't think playoff or bust, but definitely playoffs and definitely winning the division. I mean, this offense was incompetent. Ryan Grubb was great at Washington, but it's very tough to run a similar college style offense in the NFL with, the difference in hash width, how you design things, the type of defenses you're facing. It's a completely different ball game, just in terms of spacing and the kind of players you're going against. So he didn't, and the toughest part about him is that he designs an okay pass game for the NFL, but his run game design is horrible. And I think that was really his shortcoming, especially with a really good running back tandem of Kenneth Walker III and Zach Charbonnet. So Clint Kubiak's going to come in. He's just a really, really good offensive-minded coach, and he's going to be perfect for the personnel within this offense. And namely, I just want to compare inside zone, outside zone, and shotgun and under center rates between these two offenses to show, just with one change, how much different the offense is going to look schematically, and how that better fits the players that they have in this scheme. So last year, the Saints ran zone 64.1% of the time compared to 42.5% that the Seahawks ran in 2024. And I know we're talking about the Saints, but that's where Clint Kubiak was. There should be similar rates going into this year, kind of like we talked about. I forget which team we talked about that with, but
yeah, absolutely.
A couple episodes ago, but same idea, right? He ran inside zone about 16% of the time, which was 23rd. The Seahawks ran at 22.4. So inside zone's going to dip, but outside zone is going to have a huge spike. Outside zone, just over 48% was ran with the Saints last year. That was 4th in the NFL. Seahawks ran more than half of that, 22.8% of the time or 23% of the time. So their outside zone rate is going to more than double going into 2025. Those numbers get even more extrapolated when they get under center. The Saints ran inside zone 10% of the time under center. Seahawks ran it 4.4. So a lot less inside zone under center from the Seahawks last year. That's going to increase under center for this Seahawks this year. And then outside zone, the Saints ran the most outside zone percentage-wise in the NFL under center at 61.6%. That's ridiculous. The Seahawks were at 35.6. So we're going to more than double outside zone overall, and we're going to almost double it under center, which is just insane. And that's where Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet are going to thrive in this offense. And then just from the difference of shotgun and under center, Clint's offense last year under center, 40.6% of the time, and gun 57.1% of the time. That's 5th and 25th respectively. So one of the most under center teams in the league, where last year Ryan Grubb was 22.7 under center and 75.6 in the gun. That's 25th and 4th respectively. So you're literally getting an exact opposite flip in under center and shotgun usage. And that's where Kenneth Walker is going to thrive. They also drafted Christian Haynes last year, who was one of the best outside zone guards coming out of college last year. So just them being together in this offense is going to be great. And Sam Darnold proved he can operate in this style offense. Minnesota ran a bunch of under center with Kevin O'Connell last year. Part of that, Rams, Sean McVay coaching tree. The Kubiak tree is kind of similar to that. So we're going to see this rush game evolve, this pass game evolve. They have a lot of weapons to utilize in the pass game. Obviously, Cooper Kupp, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Torrey Horton, rookie out of Colorado State. He's going to be awesome, fun to watch. If you're in dynasty leagues, target him. Sam, if he's a free agent in your league, go pick him up because he's going to be a freak. And then the tight ends are super fun. AJ Barner, your big body blocking tight end, and Elijah Arroyo is going to be that H-back who's going to get used in motion a lot. And then the offensive line, not much improvement besides inserting Christian Haynes, but, they should be better than last year.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question about Sam Darnold?
Yeah.
Obviously, last year we talked about in the NFC North podcast that this was like a massive breakout year for him. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like where do you feel like he'll change in terms of his play style this year? I mean, are we expecting like pretty much the same consistency, or do we feel like there might be a little bit of regression? Like, I'm just curious to see like what you think, because always, when a guy has a breakout like that and then they immediately go to a new place, like there's a little bit of a gamble, right? That you're taking there, because it's like, all right, am I going to get the same Sam Darnold that we saw in Minnesota? So do you feel like Seattle is going to get that same Sam Darnold?
I don't think they get the same Sam Darnold, but I don't think it's going to be Sam Darnold that we saw early on in his career, where he, was struggling against pressure, just struggled against defenses in general, was not a high volume or high efficiency passer. His deep ball was horrible. Like, that's not the Sam Darnold you're going to get. Like, his deep ball was much better this year. He was much better under pressure. He had a better understanding of the offense that he was in, because the offense fit his skill set and how he likes to read. And I think Kubiak's offense is going to be similar, condensed formations. He's not going to have Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and TJ Hawkinson to be throwing to, but he's going to have good receivers. Like Jackson Smith-Njigba is a very, very good up-and-coming receiver. Cooper Kupp, one of the best veteran receivers out there. I talked about Torrey Horton. He's going to be he's going to blow up, and people don't realize how good he is yet. He's very, very good for his size. I think he's 6'3", and he's going to be one of their slot receivers, right? And he can split out wide if you need. He's got a good tight end duo. He's got a good two-headed rushing attack, which I think is better than what Aaron Jones and Cam Akers offered last year. Like, he has a more sound weapon system within the offense he's playing in, if that makes sense, rather than just straight up star power. And they're diversified. The offensive line is not nearly as good as Minnesota was. So I think that's where we're going to see the dip, is that he's going to be pressured more often. And usually when you get pressured more often, you perform worse. So, but again, I think Sam Darnold's worst days are behind him. I think this is going to be his second best season he's had in his career. I don't know if he'll ever reach the highs of last year with Minnesota. The last 3 weeks were really rough for him, and the playoffs were rough. But I mean, the middle of the season for him was just absolutely astronomical. But we should still see a good Sam Darnold in 2025.
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing like kind of towards the end of his time with the Jets, where he was breaking tackles from ghosts.
Yeah, literally.
Let's talk about the defensive unit. Could be really, really good. What are you excited to see out of the Seahawks defense?
I'm just excited to see them grow and be healthy for once. They had a lot of injuries, especially up front last year. Some guys were misplaced just because they didn't have guys to play in certain positions that they had last year. And that should change this year, which is wonderful. But just going from EPA, last year in total, they were 10th in EPA per play allowed, 11th in EPA per dropback allowed, and 13th in EPA per rush. So all good metrics. From week 10 to week 18, they were one of the best. And this is where I really want to get into it. They were 5th in EPA per play allowed, 5th in EPA per dropback allowed, and 6th in EPA per rush. And it's not because they added this player, but adding this player added an element to a Mike McDonald defense that was missing through the first half of the season. And that's Ernest Jones IV, one of the best blitzing linebackers in the league and pass rushing. And he's fine in zone coverage, but blitzing is really where he makes his money. And the Seahawks are so multiple that they were missing that. So they kind of just sent 4 or 5 from up front and didn't really blitz anyone until they got him. And once they got him, I mentioned this last episode, I think the whole geography of the defense changed. And that allows, like we see all with the Rams, they switched to 5-man front and they ran different unique pressure packages. That's what the Seahawks did, just from different angles. Like, it was more inside out rather than outside in, like the Rams ran last year. And just getting into this unit, they added DeMarcus Lawrence of free agency, and on the edge, he's going to be paired up with Boye Mafe, who broke out last year and was really solid. Uchenna Nwosu, who's just a super uber reliable edge, and Derek Hall is a really good fourth option to have in that edge group. Interior defensive line, Leonard Williams, another really good savvy veteran. Byron Murphy II, he played a lot of nose snaps last year. He's a really good D tackle, but he's not a nose. He's going to be playing a lot more 3-tech, 4-eye tech, 4-tech, and that's going to be really beneficial for him in his development and just opening up this defense. And then they have Jaron Reed and Mike Morris just going to help fill out in those base packages, or, giving them a breather if they need it in nickel and dime packages. Linebackers, we talked about Ernest Jones IV, and then Tyrese Knight, kind of a decent coverage linebacker. So when he blitzes, Knight's going to be the one dropping back, covering over the middle of the field. Corners are really deep. Tariq Woolen, Devin Witherspoon, who is one of the best nickel corners in the league, especially when stopping the run. He is a menace. Josh Joby, Nehemiah Pritchett, and Shaquille Griffin, all solid players in their own right. Not as good as Tariq and Devin Williams, but still solid themselves. And then the safety group is really good. Kobe Bryant, who not, the Kobe that we know, but,
yes.
in the NFL, made the full-time switch to safety. We'll talk about him in a little bit. Julian Love is a really good, strong safety playing in the box. And then they drafted Nick Imanwori, who I wasn't high on in this draft. I thought he struggled with pursuit angles and phasing well in coverage. But to learn behind Kobe and Julian Love and kind of be this, guy that comes in nickel packages and plays dime linebacker because he's 6'3", 225. Like, he's a big dude, and he's a really good athlete for his size. Like, he's not going to be asked to start right away. He's going to be asked to be a package guy and fill in and learn different angles and learn different coverages through the season rather than just saying, hey, you need to learn all this by week 1. So that'll be really good for his development. I think he fits in really well with Mike Macdonald. He's going to play I don't think he's nearly the same caliber player, but he'll be that Kyle Hamilton type player where wherever they need a big body, they're going to plug and play him, whether it's, they're in a 4-3 and they need him at strong safety to hold down the edge on the backside, he's going to be there. If they're running a penny front and he's the third safety who's going to be in the box or like next to the linebacker, he's going to be in that spot. So it's a really, really neat pairing, having him and Mike Macdonald, and the second round value is pretty solid for the type of player he is and how he fits into the system.
Yeah, and let's talk about Kobe Bryant when you mentioned him. He is your dark horse this year.
Mm-hmm.
He's an incredibly, he's probably been one of the most reliable guys on the Seahawks offense. He gets a lot of snaps. He's highly efficient in several key categories for safeties. Could you kind of expand upon his efficiencies?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I mentioned, this was his first year playing full-time safety, I believe, in his career because he was a corner when he was at Kansas and played corner early on in his career. It really struggled there, but they moved him to safety because they had a need, and he was awesome. So out of all safeties with 500-plus snaps at the free safety position, we're just going on PFF numbers here just to keep things simple, but he was 9th in defense grade, 6th in run defense grade, 9th in tackle grade, and 10th in coverage grade. And this is his first year ever playing free safety in a very complex defense. He fits in perfectly with how Mike Macdonald wants to run these fire zones and run all these unique stunts. And he roamed the deep half of the third more than any other safety in the NFL. Like, they ran cover 3 a shit ton last year. So to see him do that in his first year as a free safety in this style defense was really, really cool to see. I think he's going to have an awesome year 2 and a really good 2025. But it's going to take this secondary from, top 8 to top 4. Like, those are the expectations I have of this defense, because Devin Witherspoon is awesome as a nickel. Reek Woolen is a really good lengthy speed corner, and he's got the size to back it up. Julian Love, Kobe Bryant, Josh Joby, who he might be that cornerback too, opposite Reek. It might be Shaq Griffin as a veteran presence. And then bring in Nick Imanwori. He's just going to keep this defense really multiple. And I think that's what thrives in the NFL, is having a versatile, multiple defense, especially in the secondary like they have this year.
Absolutely. And then the big burning question for the Seahawks, we kind of talked about it a little bit, but, will Sam Darnold be enough to get this offense elevated enough to win the division? Like, here's the thing. Like, the benchmark is there. They basically hit it. The benchmark to win the division last year in the NFC West clearly was win 10 games. They won 10 games, right? Like, how do you push the envelope even further to give yourself enough cushion to win the division?
Yeah, it's tough, because if it was any other division, I would say, yeah, they have a shot. And I think they still do have a shot. But the biggest question mark is this offensive line. And unfortunately, the 3 other teams you're going against have a really good pass rush unit coming into this year. And not just good, but deep. They're going to be fresh. They're going to be coming at you full tilt. Like the Rams are one of the best pass rushing units in the league. The Cardinals are super sneaky, and now they just added a bunch of depth on that defensive line. The 49ers we'll talk about, they've kind of retooled that defensive line, and they brought back Robert Saleh, who ran one of the best defenses during his tenure with the 49ers. Like, this is going to be, if you can split your division and go 3-3 in the division, I think they can win the division because they'll be able to beat up on some other teams with how diverse this offense is and how this defense is going to get after everybody else they play.